ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Irrational Competence Podcast. We're talking college football, and it is week number 5. We're cruising right along in this season, and I'm joined by my co-host, the man who is the best co-host on the premier podcast, the College Football Podcast, in the state of Kansas, if I can even get through this opening today, because I'm so excited with how big we are in the state of Kansas. My co-host,
Hey,
Fresh,
Sunflower
how you doing?
State. The Sunflower State loves us. I mean, that's awesome. We love Kansas right back. Topeka, Wichita, Lawrence, Manhattan, the whole state. It's a great place, and love it to death. And they give us the love right back. Haps, I'm doing absolutely fantastic, man. What is it? Week 5 now? Week 6? Week 6, I
Right.
think. This
No, we're
season
on
just
5.
flying. Week 5. All right, I'm not gonna get ahead of myself. The season just flying by. But now we are starting to get in the thick of it. Where just about everybody's in conference play. Games are increasing in value and importance tenfold going forward. Making sure we're all keeping our receipts and talking our trash. And you know what, Coach Lanning, we're doing it for clicks, and we're doing it for wins. We're doing it for both here. So, it's a really exciting time, and can't wait to go through this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, guys, before you go on to anything else, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Get notified every single time we drop a new video or a new episode. Leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. And make sure you're checking out spinnablesports.com, because the Irrational Confidence Podcast is part of Spinnable Sports. So check everything out there, spinnablesports.com. Fresh, before we roll into the weekend, this is an interesting thing. We had such a big weekend in week number 4, jam-packed with games, and then it's kind of a letdown weekend. It feels like that, when you have so many games against ranked teams, there sometimes is a letdown with what you as the fans experience, but also what some of these teams experience.
We got a bunch of teams off too. You have Ohio State obviously has the week off. UNC is not playing. Florida State is the week off. Miami's off. A couple other teams later down in the top 25. It's sort of in that period where you start getting that bye week between this week, next week, and probably the week after, where that transition from September to October. And coming off those big games that you just had, hitting a mellow, teams are off. The schedule, you're trying to figure out who's playing. It's one of those times where you don't get caught looking ahead. Stay the course. If you are off, take advantage of it. Rest yourself, because you're going to need it, because it's going to be a stretch run through November that's going to be painful, and you're going to need every ounce of energy. But it's that point where you need to sort of, we got a long season left, a lot of games. They're only going to get bigger and much more important. Just, stem the tide, focus on what you can control, and keep moving forward one play at a time.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go out to our first game of the week. We're talking Mountain West football this time. It's San Diego State. They're 2-3 on the year, but they are traveling to the Air Force Falcons. They're 4-0 on the season, 2-0 in the Mountain West Conference. At time of record, it is a 10.5-point favorite for Air Force right now. Over-under is set at 42.5 points. San Diego State's on a 3-game losing streak after starting the season 2-0, but their 3-game losing streak, Fresh, this is impressive. UCLA, Oregon State, Boise State. All 3 of those teams, respectable football programs. No shame in losing to those teams, especially if you're in the Mountain West. I think a lot of people will say, well, why are you previewing a 2-3 San Diego State team? This team is much better on paper than what the record shows right now. But you are what your record says you are.
That's very true. And the funny part is, the reason why I said is that week 6 and week 5 at the very opening is because this is actually San Diego State's 6th game of the season. It's September 30th. Their schedule is basically half done before October even starts, it's painful as a football fan, because you're like, well, what do I do for the next 2 months? I only have 6 games the next 8-9 weeks. But they've put in the work. They've had to play a lot of tough opponents. And now with conference play in the Mountain West starting out, hopefully maybe some of that experience of playing the Oregon States, the UCLAs, Ohio, the opener, pays off down the stretch. If they are going to be successful, their offense is definitely going to improve. The Aztecs historically have been a run-first, run-heavy football team and playing great defense, especially under Brady Hoke. We haven't seen either of those things so far this season. Now, probably it's because they played some very tough opponents in their schedule, but they just haven't played themselves. They have not played their brand of football up to this point. And it starts with the quarterback. Jalen Maiden 942 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, but he's also the leading rusher with 278 and 3 touchdowns. This is not a triple option offense. This is not a spread offense. It's more of a pro-style run-centric, but they haven't got anything going any outside of him, and that's got to change coming into this football game if you want to beat a very good Air Force team on the road. I want to know in this football game who is going to step up on that offense. Is it going to be tight end Mark Redmond, wide receiver Balin Brooks, wide receiver Brioni Penny, wide receiver Mekhi Shaw, or where's Jalen Armstead at? Who is going to become that number 2, that number 3 guy in this rotation to put up points, put up yards, and keep the offense going? You cannot continue to keep relying on your quarterback as a one-man show, because if he has an off day or the offensive line struggling, the offense is going to sink. They've got to find that this week. Maybe the pressure's a little off. They have nothing to lose going into play Air Force. They're 2-3. They've had a rough start. Maybe nobody on the outside expects them to show up. You've got to sort of use this as a way to galvanize and bring your team together. And for lack of a better term, hunker down and figure it out. Who's going to be the spark? Who's going to bring that offense and take advantage of this situation? You could go into Colorado Springs, go into basically the base of Pikes Peak, into Air Force Stadium, into Falcon Stadium, and take out an undefeated program that is high and rising, and I think is a very, very good team and on the cusp of top 25, in my opinion. If you can go in there and do this, it makes up and it takes away that loss to UCLA. It takes away the loss to Oregon State. It takes away that, that clunker to Boise State in the opener. It makes you one-on-one in the league. It puts you back on basically level playing ground and move forward, and you knocked off arguably the best team in the conference. So it gives you really a chance to maybe even play up. There's no divisions anymore, so anything can happen if you work yourself through the league. This is a big time for Brady Hoke and that team to sort of bring themselves together. If you put all your effort in this one, your schedule lightens up down the stretch. Can they get this done? Also on the defensive end, when you're playing a triple option centric attack like Air Force brings, what are your keys on defense? Your linebackers. Do not get looking at all the window dressing behind you. Follow the running backs, follow the quarterback, tackle, helmet on pads, wrap up and drive them into the ground. You can't get too carried away with some of the, fake some of the motions. Got to play your gap and play disciplined football. That's how triple option teams beat people. Everyone laughed at Paul Johnson, who's at Georgia Tech. Oh, it's running this, high school offense. Georgia Tech went to an Orange Bowl. They won the ACC running that same offense. It's discipline, it's manipulation, it's running at you from multiple angles and causing you to get lazy on your tackling assignments and lazy on your discipline, and that's when they break one for 50, 60 yards and a score. You've got to be focused, you've got to be locked in to stop the triple option, and that's what the Aztec defense is going to have to go through. It's very, very tough to prepare for, and you haven't really played an offense that's like it all year. So how does this team, in a week span, lock themselves down and get themselves ready to go? On the other side, Air Force's offense is ridiculous. Averaging 340 on the ground a game. Quarterback Zach Lear from Youngstown, Ohio. Big-time college football, big-time Ohio-centric football team here in Air Force. But as we all know, Ohio is basically bred football, and especially Youngstown. 221 in the air, 259 on the ground for him and 3 touchdowns. He is definitely the leader. He's going to be the general, if you will, to get this offense going. But running back Emmanuel Mitchell from Lawrenceville, Georgia, 322 on the ground and 6 touchdowns. And you also got running backs John Lee Eldridge, also from Youngstown, and Owen Burke, 3rd and 4th overall rushers of the team. The 4 of these guys all having 250-plus yards rushing to their names so far this season. All 4 of them are lethals. They all can take it the distance if they have a chance. You've got to make sure you're disciplined and be able to tackle them because they've been doing it. And the funny thing is, all those guys are seniors. This is not a freshman coming in there. They're all seniors. They know what they're doing. They've been doing this for, if you include coronavirus, 2020, possibly in 5 or 6 years. They are well groomed into understanding their offense and their discipline spots and where they're supposed to be. That makes it even tougher on the defense because the mistakes from their end are going to be very, very limited. Their defense is just as good, and it's led by Alec Mock, the starting linebacker, 31 total tackles and 2 sacks, and safety Trey Taylor, 25 tackles and a half a sack and a pick. The 2 of them, also seniors, getting after it and really locking it down. This team is very, very veteran-laden. You've got to make sure that they beat themselves if you're the Aztecs, because Air Force is they're not going to give it away. You're going to have to be physical, and you're going to have to hope for them to slip up in a mistake here or there, which I find very, very difficult. This is a very good football team at home. If it was in the road down at Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego, I'd be a little more on the Aztec side, but I think Air Force rolls in this game. They're favored by 10.5. They will cover it. The over-under is a little tough because it requires Aztecs to score. I think it'd take the under in this situation, but the Air Force Academy, the Falcons, will cover, and win.
Fresh, San Diego State last week against Boise State allowed 241 rushing yards to Boise State. Air Force right now has attempted 12 passing attempts on the entire season. There's a lot of teams that are attempting 12 passing attempts in a quarter right now. If San Diego State doesn't do, we can talk all day long about Jalen Maiden, and you're right. He can't be the do-all everything quarterback. He can't be responsible for throwing the ball. He can't be responsible for being their lead rusher. Can't do everything and put the entire offensive game plan onto his shoulders. Someone else needs to make play on the offensive side. But the defense has got to pull themselves up a little bit as well. Brady Hoke, for the longest time, was well known for being a defensive-sided coach. He needs to kind of bring that run defense back together for the Aztecs. Granted, yes, you're not playing the UCLAs, you're not playing the Oregon States. This is going to be an interesting one. See if they're able to bring that defense back, kind of limit the rushing attack. Because like you said, you don't really go up against the triple option very often. And it's very difficult to game plan against. It's very difficult to kind of simulate in practice because it's not something that you're used to doing. That's what makes it so effective. For Air Force, the rushing attempt is going to be relentless for them. So, as you said, the top 4 rushers for Air Force, and again, that's what I looked at because of San Diego State's ineptitude on defense, especially against the run. I started looking at solely what is Air Force going to do when they're running the football. Their top 4 rushers are all seniors. They account for 14 of their 17 touchdowns on the year. You also forgot, though, the Air Force defense linebacker PJ Ramsey. He's had a really good year as well. He's got 3 sacks on season. Oh, and guess what? He is as well. He's a senior too. Air Force is a very senior-laden team. Like you said, they're not going to beat themselves in this football game. Right now on the season, they have 14 total penalties. That's less. It's just over 3 penalties a game. That means that they're a disciplined football team. It's what we expect from the military academies. We see this every single time when we talk about Army, Navy. We see this when we're talking about Air Force. I'm sure when Space Force gets a football team, they'll be a disciplined football team as well. They all have that same MO. They're going to play. They're going to control the clock. Air Force right now on the season is averaging over 36 minutes of possession in a football game. That's huge. If San Diego State wants to win this football game, they cannot allow Air Force to get rolling downfield. The minute they sit there, they're going to need to stop drives within, I'm telling you, you can't have these 12, 13, 14 play drives so it ends in a touchdown for Air Force. San Diego State, 5 or 6 plays, because Air Force is probably not going to hit you with a lot of big play touchdowns there. You got to really pull that one together. I have Air Force winning this outright, but I think San Diego State is going to show that they're a little bit better than where they were. They're playing. Wound up going back and I'm watching the first half of the UCLA San Diego State game. They played the UCLA very, very tough early on in that football game. And then you started to see the talent difference start to come out late in the second quarter there in that game. I'm going to say this. I think San Diego State's going to have that in them, but the triple option is too difficult for teams. Give me Air Force outright, but I'll take San Diego State in the 10.5. If that number slips below double digits, I'm going to go back with Air Force because I think 9 points is right around the sweet spot for me. But I'll take San Diego State in the 10.5. Over under, I'm with you. That's a tough one for me. I'll go under right now just because I think this is going to be a tight ball game. And again, if Air Force gets these long, drawn-out drives, there's not going to be enough point scores for that to come into the over.
Yep. And folks, just put in perspective, Air Force has 14 penalties all season. Boston College had 18 versus Florida State in that single game alone.
Right. All right, Fresh, let's head out to the Bluegrass State and the University of Florida, the Gators, pulling themselves off the mat after that disappointing loss out at Utah, and they're traveling up to the undefeated Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky is 4-0, and Florida is the team that's ranked in the AP. I don't understand that one. They're 3-1 right now. Right now, at time of record, Kentucky is down to a 1-point favorite. They opened up at a 3-point favorite. They're down to 1 point. Over-under is down to 44 points at time of record. Fresh, we know how I feel about Graham Mertz-led teams, so I'll turn it over to you.
I mean, there's really no point in us even having this conversation right now, Seth, because Coach Stoops already told the world how to beat Florida in his weekly press conference. He said the secret to beating Florida is to wake up early and to drink a bunch of beers. And if that's what it takes to get your fans fired up and to get your team ready to go and put that in, that's play number one. That's the blue book. That's the playbook there. I'm all about it. Wake up early, folks, and drink beers in Lexington and go beat the Gators. But unfortunately, there's probably a little more to that than just the simple imbibing of the beverages. Florida's defense has looked a lot better since that Salt Lake City opener where Utah's second and third string quarterback and everybody else decided to run wide open, all over the place. They have improved a lot, but there's still some holes there that they need to figure out. They're allowing 245 a game total, 162 in the air and 82 on the ground. That breaks down to basically 4.66 yards a play. And in retrospect, Kentucky's giving up 4.39 yards per play. So they have some big plays in front of them, but actually those are two of some of the better in the SEC right now in terms of defensively, on a defensive perspective. I am worried about their offense, though. You mentioned Graham Mertz, but it goes a little deeper than Graham Mertz. You settled for 5 field goals versus Charlotte. Not the Carolina Panthers who play in Charlotte, the Charlotte 49ers. The dude walked in with cut off sleeves and a workout shorts, and he was the head coach, and you kicked 5 field goals for Charlotte. There are issues in the red zone. You're not tough enough. It still blows my mind that you were able to beat Tennessee. I think there's just some voodoo around that game because that same team did not show up on Saturday night to play as effectively as they did the week before. The running game was okay. Etienne and Johnson, nothing spectacular against Charlotte. Graham Mertz was okay. Nothing spectacular. The offensive line was okay. The defense did what they had to do, but the 5 field goals in the red zone, that bothers me when you're playing a much better defensive team coming up in Kentucky. How's the team going to be able to get the field goal opportunities if you're only getting that far and you're only having to use your kicker? You've got to find ways to score touchdowns versus a bad team. Your offense isn't elite right now as it is, and you're wasting opportunities. So that's a big thing on my mind right now that I want to see on Saturday afternoon up in Lexington at Kroger Field. How does this Gator offense focus? Where does Graham Mertz have it put on the shoulders? He has to throw to win. Can Pearsall make more crazy one-handed catches to keep him in the football game? I mean, that was one that was absolutely amazing. I don't know if he could do that again. I don't think anybody else could. But he's going to have to come alive and have a big game for the Gators in the passing attack to help offset and take the pressure of Etienne and Johnson and Mertz. Is that offensive line? I don't think Tennessee's defense is that great, but Kentucky's defense is a lot better. And they're going to make him pay if he's sitting back there behind center long enough. How are they going to protect the quarterback? How are they going to balance the offense? Billy Napier, your clock management has been trash. It's been trash since you showed up. How do you dictate that and make yourself better in this football game? If not, you're holding your entire team back if you cannot fix your own problems of game management and clock management. That is on you. How are you going to call your plays to keep your quarterback upright and to keep your team in the football game? Your defense can't do it all. Your defense can't save you. You don't have the 2021 Georgia defense who has all the NFL starters on it. You've got to be able to score some points and have some balance to protect that defense. Because eventually when you get through SEC play, they're going to get worn down, especially versus Kentucky. They're a very physical football team. Funny enough, these teams are actually very similar. They both have the transfer quarterback. They both have offensive lines that are trying to be physical. I think Kentucky is much more than in Florida. Their defenses are very fast. They're very aggressive. But when it comes down to it, coaching is coaching. And Mark Stoops is a much better coach than Billy Napier. How could Billy Napier coach up to Stoops' level? And could he actually try to outsmart Mark Stoops while he's on the road? That's what I want to see from Billy Napier because it's not that hard to outcoach Josh Heupel. He's an offensive guy, and he's a great offensive mind, but your defensive efforts on their side sort of flip around. I want to see you outcoach Mark Stoops. That's going to be something that's really telling me you've actually gotten past the I'm bubble screen Billy, and I don't know what I'm doing. If you actually make that, you'll definitely show you've improved. Devin Leary, this is a game you were brought to Kentucky for. You've thrown 5 interceptions so far this season, which kind of has me worried Where are you trying to build in? Have you not gotten Liam Cohen's offense yet? Have you sort of struggled there? Those 5 interceptions in 4 games has me kind of scared that you're trying to force the ball too much and trying to do a little bit too much. And you're doing that against a lesser opponents. You start getting into conference play. How is that going to withstand? Are you going to be able to keep the offense going or survive those mistakes in bigger games and bigger moments? I want to know about that. On the other side, is Tavion Robinson becoming is Tavion Robinson becoming what Wandale Robinson was for Will Levis 2 years ago when Liam Cohen was there? If he can be the big receiver to help out Leary, they have something there because they do have a solid running attack and a good offensive line. If they can get that offense clicking, they're in good spots. Ray Davis, the running back, is what I just mentioned there. Transfers in from Vanderbilt, tore it up, started at Temple, went to Vandy. He is the lead back. He's a big dude. He can run downhill with a lot of power. It's going to be fun to see the two quarterbacks and how they match up, but also how Davis and Etienne go head to head. Obviously, they don't play against each other on the field, but what are they going to see? All right, I see you did that. Now it's my turn to go step it up. Where do these two teams offensively and those playmakers, do they try to actually take their game to a different level to show up the other guy across the sideline? That's going to be something pretty cool to watch because these teams, there's some talent on the field. Who's going to show up on Saturday to get it done? The Cats have won 2 straight in this series, in the series, in 3 of the last 5. Now, going back in the day, Kentucky had no success for Florida. So this run right now is pretty unprecedented for the Wildcats and what Stoops has done, taking out Florida and actually turning the tide in the whole rivalry. Bubble Screen Billy, he's 1-4 on the road as a Gator, and 1-6 outside the swamp if you include the cocktail party and the bowl game in Las Vegas last year. They have never allowed 30-plus points they've allowed 30-plus points in 5 of those 6 games, and at least 24 in every game on the road. It means this team does not travel on the road very well. They're not bringing discipline. They're not focused. They're getting pounded when they go up, when they leave Ben Hill Griffin. Can they turn the tide in this trend? Can they actually show up on the road for once under Billy Napier's watch and play defense and win a football game? There's a lot going against them right now. The last 3 matchups have all been under 46 points. I think that happens again on Saturday. I think it's a low-scoring, slobber knocker affair. People are going to be fighting for yards. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be nasty. Kentucky wins. I had them covering the 3. If it's down to 1, I have them definitely covering the 1. Kentucky will win in a very slow, ugly football game, 20-10, 24-13, something like that. But it will not hit the over. It will be ugly and mucked up, a lot of turnovers, but Kentucky will find a way to win in the end.
Fresh, it comes down to what type of game plan Bubble Screen Billy does for against Kentucky here. If he's going to put this game in Mertz's hands, we know how that's going to end. It's not going to end well, especially when Mertz faces a guy who's a solid defensive coach and Coach Stoops, and has the ability to really put some pressure on Graham Mertz. If they kind of limit how much Mertz throws the football, I'm talking like about 22, 24 pass attempts throughout the year or throughout the game, and you run Etienne and Johnson for 35, 40 touches between the two of them, you got a real good shot at this game. Etienne has been very impressive. Johnson, yeah, he's had his moments, but I really do like Etienne a lot. He runs the ball hard, and I really think that he's got something special. He's got a little bit more speed in my mind, and he's got that little big play breakaway ability there. That could be huge. I could see Etienne busting 2 or 3 long runs in this football game. He does that, he's going to put a lot of pressure on Kentucky. Reverse for me, though, Kentucky, Devin Leary is coming off that major knee injury last year. He's still just about a year removed from that injury. I think he's coming back. He's getting used to this offense because, remember, he wouldn't have had spring football. He would have just had fall camp, getting used to this offense. Like you said, the 9-5, he's had an interception in every single game this year. But I think that he's starting to see that he's leaning on Ray Davis as much as he is. Ray Davis was fantastic. He's picked up and actually exceeded his pace where he was last year. So if you go back and look at what Ray Davis was doing in 22, he's doing an even better job here in 23. But it's really the Kentucky defense that I think is going to give some problems. It's the same thing we saw in the Utah game when Graham Mertz started to face that pressure, starting to hurry his throws, and then all of a sudden Billy Napier calls bubble screen after bubble screen after bubble screen just to get the ball out quickly, get it out into space, and try to let one of your playmakers make that big-time play. If Trevin Wallace has got 3.5 sacks, if he can get after them, I would not be shocked to see Maxwell Harrison pick up his 4th interception on the year. He's got 3 picks on the year. He's taken 2 to the house already. The real question is, does UF believe Graham Mertz needs to win them this game? If they do, they're in for a rude awakening, because I'm not trusting Graham Mertz. I'm trusting the 2 running backs beside him and letting him be a game manager. It's okay to be a game manager. I know it's an offensive term apparently to a lot of other people out there, but if you can manage the football game and let your running game, and you make the right throw when the time is necessary for you to make that throw, then fine, you're going to wind up winning this football game. But right now, I got Kentucky winning this. I still don't trust Florida. I think Florida's still overrated. I like the Kentucky, especially at 1 point right now. That's Vegas telling us that they think Florida's the better team because Kentucky's got that a couple extra point home field advantage built in there. I'm also taking the under here, Fresh. I don't think they're getting to 46 points.
I mean, it's every time you watch these games in the past 5 or 6 years, it is very ugly. It is old school. They hit, they run the ball. That's why it's actually good it's a noon game, because if it was a 7 o'clock game, you'd probably be asleep because it would just be so slow paced. But you know what? Sometimes we need those defensive games where people just get after it and they hit people, because sometimes in the game right now where everything is so wide open and so many points and just tackling is terrible, you kind of like to see teams that can hit. That's what football is in the end. So excited to see that. And also, in wrap up, will Kentucky look ahead to Georgia next week and not take Florida seriously? Keep that in the back of your mind.
All right, Fresh, so let's head out to the Pac-12. USC traveling to Colorado. Right now, USC is a 21.5 point favorite. Over-under set at 73.5 points. Again, the bloom is off the rose here for Colorado. I think that they're coming back down to earth. But let's also keep this in mind. Everyone's like, oh, they're overrated. Colorado was a 1-win football team last year. They've won 3. They've tripled their win total already this year. This year is a raging success for Colorado. Guys, do not start knocking someone just because you don't like them. They're building. Coach Prime still needs to get more of his players into that program. This will be a good football team and very competitive football team for a couple years to come. Fresh, I got to ask you, I went back and I actually watched the all-22 aerial view of the Colorado-Oregon game this past week. I saw some things, but I'll let you go with your insight first.
Well, first off, to hang on your point there, what Deion has brought to college football, what he brought to Colorado, is awesome. And people need to understand that. The excitement, the energy, the swagger, the confidence. He does not care about you. He is there to develop his team, develop the men, and to win football games in time. And if that requires having receipts or seeing somebody talking trash, he's going to call you out on it. He's going to get his team to fire it up. Because you know what? In every locker room across the country, high school up through, Division III, NAI, wherever, the head coach is talking trash in that locker room to fire the team up. It's called a pregame speech for a reason, folks. Just because certain things are leaked with people having microphones or cameras in the background doesn't make them one more popular, one more, egregious. It's all the same. Everybody's been doing it. So Deion's done it. They went out and they backed it up. Then this past week versus Colorado, there was some chitter and there's some chatter. Colorado went out and they put an end to it. They took it personal, just like Colorado taking it personal from other people. Why is this a big deal? Because it's the other way around. It's not. It's the same thing, folks. Deion was doing the same thing. Dan Lanning did the same thing. We all love it. I love Ryan Day at the end going after Lou Holtz after the Notre Dame game. This is what we want in this game. People are too scared to admit it, that there's been trash talk going on in the trenches and in the locker rooms and behind the scenes off camera forever. Deal with it, folks. Now, because you're actually getting it caught on camera and people are dropping videos and putting stuff out there, and it's now becoming public eye, you're like, oh my God, this has been happening. This is horrible. No, this has been reality, folks. People have been chirping forever. Sometimes, hey, I applaud Oregon for putting out the video, the Colorado players chirping and standing on the logo, and then Colorado come out and taking care of business. I applaud Oregon. I applaud Colorado the previous 3 weeks. When they go out there and people start talking trash, they go out there and take care of business. Let it happen. It's fun. It's great. Spurrier did it in the 90s. Everybody looked at him as an evil villain, but you know what? They kind of loved it at the same time. Enjoy it, folks. It's making the game better. It's bringing attention to everybody. That's the whole point. Eyes are on the product and people are paying attention. Enjoy it, love it, embrace it, because it's only going to become more and more. It's going to hit the NFL. It's going to be everywhere. It's just the way of the future. And with that said, this game on Saturday is not going to be any different than what it was up in Eugene. USC is going to come in and whoop Colorado again. And that's not because Colorado is terrible. It's because they don't have the depth yet. Shiloh Sanders probably not going to play. Travis Hunter out again this week. So your defense is already limited. They were already limited in the trenches. They were getting run on all day long, every single week. It's not going to get any better. USC is going to run for about 200 plus all over the place on Colorado. They don't have the line. They don't have the offensive lineman or defensive lineman to sustain in big matchups against premier teams. That just shows you also how bad Nebraska was, because Nebraska got destroyed in the second half. That shows you how TCU had some development in week one. They had to be ready for the energy, and they weren't ready there. Things happen. You get accustomed. Right now, Colorado's going through the point of they don't have the depth in those two line of scrimmage elements to sustain. And once they start recruiting there, they'll be better, but they're not right there right now. If they lose this, they're 3-2, and they get to go to Arizona State next week, have a chance to hit the over on their win total projected for the year, and everything will be great. Let it happen, folks. It's going to happen. One benefit, though, that Colorado does have in this ballgame, which actually might result in a slower start. Keep in mind for the over-under, by the way. USC has had a start at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and a 2 after 10. Late kickoffs. This game, kicking off at 9 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Mountain, noon Eastern. This is a rise and shine game for USC. Are their players ready to get going? Are they ready to go? Are they lit from the openings day, from having breakfast at whatever early morning time? This is an early start for them to get ready to fire up and play football. Are they prepared to turn it on early? Will they be sluggish in the first half and then halftime maybe get it going? That's what I'm also going to see, and that's an advantage for Colorado. Can you jump on them early? You've already gone through a couple early starts. You guys are accustomed to getting up and getting after it. How is USC be able to turn it on earlier in the day instead of waiting till middle afternoon or the evening and having that entire day to sort of wake up and get ready, go through the routine? This is a big thing. You have a chance right there. Use it to your advantage. It's also sea level to the Rocky Mountains. Elevation difference is going to be also a big factor. Is USC conditioned enough to play a full football game? You guys have been practicing it for a while. Use these to your advantage. Use everything you have. That's the whole point of playing at home and at your own kickoff times. Use all the different elements to help you out. Shedeur Sanders, how do you turn it on in this game? Obviously, the offense struggled last week. You didn't throw any touchdowns. You had less than 200 yards passing. How do you do it now? How do you show and develop as a quarterback? I had a down game. How do I turn myself back around and recover and learn and grow? That's what I think everyone else is also looking at. That's what I'm looking at. How do you grow after a clunker? You didn't have many clunkers at Jackson State. So you don't have to go through that, learning point of, all right, this is what I did wrong. This is how I have to get better. This is a great opportunity for you to learn and develop. It's not just going to be for this game, but for your career. You're going to have bad outings. And you have to be able to next game come out there, shake it off, and get better. So I'm really anxious to see how he does that and how this entire offense does. Because now you saw, everyone's been praising you guys. You've been doing great. You've seen yourself looking great on film. You have a bad film this past week. Where do you guys accept the coaching from the coaches? Because you have a great coaching staff, develop and improve. This is what I think Deion's also looking for. He's developing men. He's developing the Bobby Bowden mentality, the Mickey Andrews mentality there at Florida State. It's going to be hard-nosed. It's going to be tough. There's going to be some lessons to be learned. He called out the five-star corner this past week for not showing up on time to meetings and sometimes not showing up at all, not looking at all the film he should be looking at. He's going to call you out because right now it's about winning. It's about developing men. If you're not showing up on time, you're not going to get playing time, and you're not going to be able to go to the league. How do you do this for your team? How do you do this for yourself? Colorado as a program. This is actually a pretty good teaching moment. It's better to happen this early in the season because then you have a chance where, you have another 7 or 6 games to really get yourself understood. We were down. Now we can get better. If this happened at the last game of the year, it'd be terrible because you'd be gutted and no one really know how you would instantly recover the week after. So here is a big opportunity for Colorado to show improvement. Do I expect you guys to win? No. Do I expect you to play much better than last week? Yes. I think that's something we all should look forward to. How does this coaching staff and these players respond from adversity and get better? Because Caleb Williams and that USA team, they have a chance now to make a national spotlight. They haven't played anybody. They haven't had the lights on technically from a viewing perspective all year. This is their chance to make a national showcase for themselves and also put Caleb back in the Heisman category because we haven't talked about them. They've been off hidden, doing what they have to do, just quietly getting through it. Now they have a chance to showcase themselves at noon on Fox with everybody watching the game. USC will cover the 22. Now, the over-under, when I was doing my prep, was 73.5. It might have changed. Take the under, folks. This is not the Dolphins playing the Broncos. One team is not going to score 70 points. And if they do, that's terrible for the teams in Colorado having 70 scored on back-to-back weeks. This will be under. I don't think Colorado scores enough. I don't think USC puts up 50-plus on them. But it'll be an exciting game. But USC will take care of business.
Fresh, I told you that I watched the all 22 this past week in that Colorado-Oregon game. I wanted to see what Oregon was doing, and I want to see if USC could replicate that. First and foremost, guys, we got to talk about this. Caleb Williams has been absolutely fantastic. 15 touchdowns on the year, 0 interceptions, completing 74% of his passes. But this is going to be a big game for Austin Jones and Marshawn Lloyd. Both of them, what I watched when I put on the game tape there, is that Oregon basically ran out the same formation the entire game. They ran 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back every single play out there. That was the personnel they used almost every single time I watched. The difference that came in is what side of the field did they put the 2 wide receivers to 1 receivers, or did they do trips? Where they put the tight end, what side they put the running back on. On run plays, though, you saw a very common theme. The tight end was pulling into the middle of the offensive line and picking up either a linebacker trying to come through or picking up one of the defensive tackles and so forth. Oregon would then get a nice little push. And at this point, the holes that were being open, if you went back and watched that, Fresh and I could pick up 3 or 4 yards in those holes. And the Oregon running backs were picking up 9, 10, 15 yards in some of these runs here. That's clearly on the tape. Now, Fresh, I'm no expert. I know my football, but I'm no expert. I'm not the perfect X's and O's guy out there. But if I can sit there and watch this game tape and recognize that in a heartbeat, you know USC is seeing the exact same thing. And until Colorado says I'm going to stop you from doing that. This is why I think it's a big game for the 2 running backs. I know, Lincoln Riley is going to try to showcase Caleb Williams. He's going to try to make sure that he's in the conversation for a second Heisman. I get that. But at the end of the day, stats are stats, but we need the W no matter what here. If we're going to do that, I'm running the same game plan as Oregon. I'm doing the same thing. I'm running it up the gut. I'm running it right down the middle of that defense until you can stop me. Colorado was running a too high safety look for majority of the time. That what would happen is as they start run, then they'd start bringing one of the safeties up into the box, leaving out our friend Clifford Franklin out there in Oregon in one-on-one coverage, and that's when Bo Nix would take advantage of those. Not having Travis Hunter and Troy Franklin matching up against not Travis Hunter, Troy Franklin's going to probably win that matchup most of the time. Same thing is going to happen here at USC. You got it. That front 7 has got to lock down. They have to lock down that line of scrimmage. If they don't, USC is just going to run all up on them. And then when they bring the safety in, Caleb Williams is going to hit a big play. That's the long and the short of this. While I'm saying it's that easy for USC, it's that easy for Colorado to fix this whole issue. The question becomes, are you able to do it and you don't do it, or are you not able to do it and it's just something someone can take advantage of you? I would like to think that because these are D1 athletes here, that they do have more talent. This is a time where if I'm the defensive line coach for Colorado, I'm saying you got your lunch served to you there last weekend. You got absolutely demolished at the point of attack all day long and got pushed around by tight ends. Not pushed around by a pulling guard, not pushed around by an offensive tackle or center. You got pushed around by a tight end. Come on here, guys. Where are you at for this one? Marshawn Lloyd, I think, is going to go off in this game. I'm going to say he probably is going to, if they give him enough carries, and again, that might be the question because I still think they're going to split carries between him and Austin Jones. If Marshawn Lloyd gets enough carries, he's going for $150, and I wouldn't be shocked if he picks up 2 scores. That 21.5 is a large number for me. I'm going to go with it, though. I'll go USC and the points there. I think they're going to look. I think they're taking kind of receipts as well. And Lincoln Riley sees what like it did for Oregon stock, and I think Oregon benefited from beating the bejesus out of Colorado. I think Lincoln Riley's not a dumb person. I think he's seeing the same thing, going, man, if I go put the boots, if I go boat race Colorado in their home stadium, I might get a little bit of benefit, and I can see USC using that to springboard themselves up the ranking. I'm going to take the over in the 73 points. USC's defense is not as good. They're not as good as Oregon's defense. They're better. Still a concern for me. They're better than they were last year. They have 16 sacks on the year, but they aren't forcing as many turnovers as the year previously. And right now, the over has come in for USC 3 times on the year already. So I'm taking the over again here in this game.
It's another fun one, but it also begs the question: is this the last Fox game or prime broadcast game that we get from ABC or from Fox for Colorado this season?
I think they have one more at least on the schedule already.
I mean,
I think
I got a feeling they're probably going to get a couple more because Prime's going to draw in, but they might hesitate. Their viewership numbers are too high for them not to want to do it.
Right. All right, Fresh. Let's travel to the state of North Carolina. Come on and raise up. We're going. Oh man, is this going to be a fun one? I'm excited to talk about this one. The Fighting Irish, coming off that loss to Ohio State, they're 4-1 on the season. They're 4-1 on the season right now, and the Duke Blue Devils are 4-0 on the year. Big win to start the season against Clemson, and now they're really going to be tested here against Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 5.5 road favorite. Over-under set 50 in this game. Interesting that the over-under was set so high. Fresh, how are you seeing Notre Dame and Duke?
I think this is a fantastic matchup. Also, but I think there's just even preset by game day showing up to Durham for football. First time ever, folks. This is not going to, outside of, Cameron Indoor for a Coach K, or a Duke, Carolina basketball game. This is for football right across the street at the football field and game days on campus. That's where Duke is right now. Mike Elko and that staff have done a fantastic job of bringing in and developing tough football players and playing it the right way. It's not just a fluke win over Clemson. They beat a very good football team in Clemson. I think they're not a ranked team, but the way they played versus Florida State, it showed that Clemson still had talent, and Duke beat the trash out of them. This team is loaded. They have depth. They play disciplined. They kind of remind me of, we had the Northwestern teams or the Stanford teams that were really good, under where they had Andrew Luck there or Christian, McCaffrey, or the Northwestern teams that went to the Big Ten title games. It's that same kind of mentality of, well, it's high academic standards. There's no way they can compete, they can win. If you go out and get the smart kids, there are a lot of smart kids out there who play football, folks. They're not the moniker, the stigma of dumb jocks is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There are extremely intelligent people all over this entire country, all over this world, who can play football. And if they come in there, they can meet they can play at the highest level, and they get the academic standards at the same time. They can come out there and get it done. They're disciplined, they execute, they play within the system that's built there. And they find ways to win. And people take them and they underrate them. I think this is a big standard for Duke football to show, you know what? We can actually sustain. We can do this. We did this last year. We're going to do it this year. I'm impressed. I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen on Saturday night. And I've been impressed with Mike Elko, what he did last year and this year. But it's not just him. It's the way the defense, also all the players across the board, how they play within each other and play within the system. Their star quarterback, Riley Leonard, who 778 passing, 1 touchdown, 238 rushing, and 4 touchdowns so far this season. He hasn't had to do too much, and yet this team is winning. Last year, he tore it up. He ran all over the field. He threw all over the field. He made plays happen. Will that ability and will that showcase of skill come into play on Saturday night? Now he can actually put up there and actually get it going against a very, very stout Notre Dame defense. On the other side, he's also been helped out and supported by running back Jordan Waters, 258 and 7 touchdowns. That's right, folks. 4 games, he has 7 rushing touchdowns already. If the 2 of them get going, Notre Dame's in trouble. And will Notre Dame be let down after the effort? They were getting so close to finally beating Ohio State. How does the team actually respond? There's rumors, there's stories coming out of South Bend that the team is dejected. And Coach Freeman and the entire staff are just begging this team to get up and get juice and get energy and rebuild their confidence. They were completely dejected. They had that game won, and they lost it late on multiple occasions. How does this Notre Dame team respond having to go on the road with game day talent again? The spotlight is no longer on you, but you're playing a very formidable foe. That's a big challenge for Marcus Freeman and the entire staff, Sam Hartman, and the entire team. How do they respond? Because Duke right now, they have nothing to lose. If Duke loses, nobody cares. It's not that big of a deal. If Duke wins, then everyone starts asking, is Notre Dame a fraud? And is Duke really going to run? Could Duke Carolina be the game of the year in the ACC? I don't think it will be, but that's where you start going on that road. How does Notre Dame respond mentally for this football game? And can Duke just go in and play free like they did versus Clemson, where nobody gave them a chance, and take advantage of the crowd, take advantage of the spotlight, and win a football game? They also need to make sure that they follow what Ohio State did last week. The Duke has to watch and look at that film. There's a different Ohio State approach than we've usually seen in Ryan Day. Ryan Day loves to throw the football. He has changed. I said it going in the preview last week. This is going to be the best coaching effort of Ryan Day's career on Saturday night. I wouldn't say it's the best. They have to maybe a couple of coaching questions here and there, but they ran the football. They ran the football, and they ran the football extremely effective against Notre Dame. They didn't make Kyle McCord in a situation where he'd be uncomfortable. And that's what you have to do with Riley Leonard. Do not put him back there where you put four receivers in the field and have to keep chucking the ball, because that Notre Dame secondary, the Notre Dame defense, Bertrand is as fast as a linebacker to come off the edge in a blitz. You're going to be in trouble. You've got to run the ball and be physical, and you've got to match them at the line of scrimmage. That's what Notre Dame is. That's what the tradition they always will be. They are a physical football team. And if you do not meet them in the trenches and run the ball and protect your quarterback and manage the passing game, you will be in trouble. You look at all the times Notre Dame loses is they get out physical at the line of scrimmage. No matter what Notre Dame team you watch, Brian Kelly eras, current administration, Tyrone Whittingham back in the day. If you don't own the line of scrimmage against Notre Dame, because they're always going to have great linemen, you're going to lose. And that's what Duke has to do. They've got to meet them in the trenches, do what Ohio State did, run the ball down their throat, and then passing game build off of that. You got to change. You have to force yourself to change a philosophy sometimes. And Ryan Day did it, and it paid off. If McCord had to drop back all night long and they didn't have the running game, I'm not sure that offense would have scored, even though they only scored 17 points. Would they have been as successful? Would he have made some mistakes? Possibly, but you don't know. The game is a win for Ohio State. Move on. Notre Dame has got to learn. On the other side of this game, Hartman estimated that Notre Dame offense, outside the final fourth quarter, you had 2 touchdowns. You were dead for 3 quarters. How did you guys respond? You came in, scored 40-plus points in 4 straight games. Had never been done before in Ohio State history. In Notre Dame history. And Ohio State shut you down. And you struggled. You finally were able to squeak a couple touchdowns in late. Where do you get that offense fired up and get going again? You couldn't run the ball very effectively. Hartman couldn't throw the ball. It was pressure all night from that Ohio State defense. How do you guys flip the switch on a very bad and blundered outing in the biggest game of your season that could have actually kept you in the playoff picture? Right now, I think you're completely out of it. Even if you run the table, I don't think that you're going to be in, because Clemson is so far off, and I don't think you're beating USC. So that's a big trouble point right now for Notre Dame. You wasted your chance. You can't let that one loss become 2. I think the Irish are going to start really slow in this football game. They're going to have effects of that Ohio State game still hanging over them. They're going to be, the environment's going to be a little big for them, having to get up for another football game. As time carries on, I think they find a way to get a win. It will be ugly. It won't be spectacular. It won't be a 40-point effort. It's a 5.5. At least I did my preview. They had 5.5-point spread. I think they cover that. They might win by 6, maybe 7, maybe like a 24-17. 20-13 game. It will be ugly. It'll muck it through. They'll find a way to get a win in the end. It'll be a test to Marcus Freeman and the entire team to be physical and to win an ugly one and overcome adversity. But Duke will put up a heck of a fight and make it a full-quarter battle.
Fresh, it really comes down to the question, how well is Marcus Freeman able to get Notre Dame to bounce back after this game? That's a heartbreaking loss, however you shake it. And I think that we saw a thing in that fourth quarter of really how Notre Dame can dominate this football game. And it comes down to Love and SMA just running the football. SMA they were cruising 5.7 yards to carry. against Ohio State, and Duke is allowing 133 yards rushing right now in the season. Duke's defense, though, is an interesting thing to look at. They have this bend, don't break mentality. They give up a lot of yards inside the 20, but really lock it down around the 25-yard line. It's fascinating to watch and see what they're able to do. Riley Leonard takes care of the football, hasn't turned the ball over right now, and Jordan Waters is like the perfect complement to Leonard. I really, really like this kid. I like what he's been able to do. But this is definitely the best team Duke has faced. And you got to deal with, especially on the outside, Benjamin Morrison. He has definitely become a lockdown corner on the outside there. I think he may be one of the best cornerbacks in all of college football right now. He has been fantastic this season. I really do think the question's got to be, though, what if Duke wins this game? What if the Blue Devils pulled off the upset? Because this would be a pretty big upset if Duke wins this game. Not saying it's impossible like one of the other ones. What if Duke wins this and they move to 5-0? All of a sudden, very interesting for the Blue Devils. Very, very interesting for the Blue Devils. I think that they're going to have a lot of respect on their name going into that matchup with Florida State later in the year. I got Notre Dame winning this game. I'm going to take the 5.5 points as well, but I'm not going to be if Duke won. If it's Saturday night and we're talking about, oh my gosh, Duke won. I can't believe Duke beat Notre Dame. I'm not going to be, oh my, wow, like I can't believe that. I'm going to be like, I get it. I understand what they did. The game plan is there for them to win. I just don't know if they're going to be able to execute to that level. So give me the Irish in this game. I'll take the points, like I said. And you know what? I'll actually take the under in this game. I don't think they're going to hit 50. I think this is going to be a little bit low scoring football game and play tight, but it will be decided by the time fourth quarter rolls around.
It'll
All
be a
right.
fun one on Saturday night, but if Duke wins, do we actually get an official name for their student section at the football field? Because we have the we have Cameron Crazies. Do we get the Wade Wackos or something like that? Like, what is that name if they actually pull off the upset? What will that be?
I'll take it, man. I love Duke fans on that part. I love the Duke and North Carolina rivalry. It's fantastic. Both fan bases, a lot of respect out to them. All right, Fresh, let's travel to the state of Alabama and Jordan Hare Stadium. The UGA Bulldogs are traveling to Alabama. Deep South's oldest rivalry or good old fashioned hate, whichever one this one is.
Deep South Souls, Deep
Okay.
South.
Yeah, that's Georgia Tech is good old fashioned hate. So
Yep.
Georgia right now, time of record is a 14.5 point favorite. Over under is set at 46.5 points here, Fresh. I'll let you go first. You're a Georgia fan. I'll give my take
Well,
here in a second.
first off, full disclosure, I hate Auburn. Um, they they're number two on the rivalry list behind Florida, but I hate Auburn, and I really took the point in 2010 with Nick Fairley's dirty late hit on Aaron Murray, and it just went from a fun family kind of rivalry to downright disgust. Jordan Hare is uh, a mystic place of voodoo where crazy things happen. Whether it doesn't matter what team goes in there, if you're going to that stadium, weird things happen. That crowd, that fan base is raucous. It is a very intense environment, and weird things just seem to happen and go the Tigers' way from time to time. So this is always a game that I don't care how bad Auburn is, and they're pretty terrible. Um, it's one of those places where like you just don't you feel very uneasy when your team makes a trip there. Um, Georgia's injury list is about the size of a CVS receipt, but the thing is, you can't use that as an excuse because you're Georgia and you've had a top three recruiting classes for the past 6-7 years. You're two-time defending champions. The fact that you can't let injuries be an excuse. You already have the depth. You've got to have the coaching. You've got to be able to figure it out. That should not be a problem here, and that should be in play. Um, some people might use that as an excuse, but injuries don't matter. You've got to play the football game. You've got to roll with what you got. And with your development and the way the program is right now, you shouldn't have too much of an issue finding players that want to step up and play for the team and play within the system and get it done. So there are injury concerns, but that should not be a reason why you win or lose a football game because you should have the depth to be able to cover that. Carson Beck in that offense. Carson Beck has shown significant progress up to this point. If you look at his stats, he's actually one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the conference. And compared to where Stetson Bennett was exactly through 4 games last year, they have the exact same stats. Running attack, Georgia rushing, the exact same stats as last year through the first 4 games. So take it for what you want. The offense is sort of, it might look clunky at times, or you have expectations that are different, but they've been able to sort of manage through. Now, with that said, this is Carson Beck's first road start ever. And it's coming not in a neutral site. This is the first time outside of Sanford Stadium where he is getting a start. How does he handle the road environment? How does he handle the noise, the adversity that's going to come, the trash talking when he's out there warming up? You are now in the spotlight, and everyone, all 80 plus thousand of them are going to be yelling at you the entire time. How do you handle yourself? Keep your composure, make your reads, and make your throws in an uncomfortable environment. It's not an easy place to play. There are many veteran quarterbacks who've gone in there, including Bryce Young, and have struggled for many quarters and had to find ways to get wins in the end or made bad throws. This is an environment you've got to be able to control, and the way you control it is by putting up points early and shutting them up. If you struggle early, it just gets louder and louder and louder. It's like any time on the road, I don't care where you go, there are just certain places that are very hostile. We've talked about how many times Iowa is a very hostile environment, especially at night. You go to places where the team might not be very good, but the environment makes the team better. It's really weird. And that's for a situation you've got to be able to manage yourself and keep your composure and let your offense, let your coaches play with you on the same page. If you try to do too much and take it into yourself, you're going to crumble. Trust your linemen, trust your running backs, trust your coaches, trust your receivers, and in turn, they need to trust you and you trust them, and that's how you sort of survive road environments. Home games are one thing, road games are another, and that's what I really want to see from Carson Beck and his offense. There's a lot of young guys who are also going to be dressing. Now, one thing, I don't know if people know this, you might not. In conference games, when you travel, you have a limited roster. You don't get to have 100 guys on the sideline. You've got to figure out who's going to make the trip and who's actually going to dress in conference play. So that comes into the factor of Ladd McConkey has not played, has not dressed so far this season. Is he healthy enough to be worthy of a roster spot, to be able to contribute all 4 quarters in a big game? Or do you hold him out and keep him at home for next week versus Kentucky? That's a key thing the staff, the coaching staff's got to figure out. Who is healthy enough and who can contribute to make a road start and be able to bring on this trip? You can't bring everybody. You've got to be able to figure out your game plan depending on the players you have. Who's the running back situation? Edwards has been playing real well. Robinson's been playing well. Bell's had some success back there. Cash Jones has had some success. That's 4 running backs. You can't really deal with an injury. How do you manage that road roster? How do you build a game plan to support your quarterback and support your team with the limitations you have? That comes right there to coaching and how you figure out how you're going to use your players in the best possible way to be successful on Saturday afternoon. Georgia's defense has been playing pretty good. They have not really shown much except late in fourth quarters they've given up some touchdowns. How do they play a complete game? They haven't played one yet. Pass rush has been there from time to time, but how do they play a complete 4-quarter football game? We have not seen that from this Georgia defense. Now, obviously, the standard of the previous years has been so high. They are not obviously living up to that perspective. Do they have a chance right now this Saturday to show up and maybe get it done? Or do we start seeing continued youth from this team who's not actually executing at the same highest level? Interesting, something to watch. Obviously, Auburn's offense is probably one you want to be able to get kind of a get-right game. We'll see how it happens because Auburn's offense is pretty rough. They have quarterback, O-line, wide receiver issues, but their running back depth is pretty solid. They've scored 14 and 10 this year versus Power 5 teams, but they scored 59 and 45 versus UMass and Samford, respectively. Auburn has not thrown for more than 100 yards in their last 5 Power 5 SEC matchups. Power 5 games, excuse me. Will this week be the 6th? During those Power 5 games, they have a completion percentage of 43.9%. Their quarterback play has been downright awful. Will it be Robbie Ashford? Will they continue to go with Peyton Thorne? They played 3 quarterbacks last week and threw 56 yards versus A&M. They've got to figure something out. Hugh Freeze, you're an offensive guy. You were brought here. Which of these quarterbacks, how can you figure this out? I know it's only been 4 games, 5 games, but you've got to get yourself in a situation to play. I think this Saturday we see Robbie Ashford get a lot more playing time than he has so far for Auburn. He runs, he's a little more mobile, creates more with his legs, gives the defense something else to look at because Peyton Thorne is a statue back behind center. He came from Michigan State. He's going to throw, but he can't move. And that's why he's going to take a lot of hits. I think they're going to play Ashford a lot, use his mobility, use a lot of uh, motions, a lot of try to window dressing to create confusion in the backfield. They might even put both quarterbacks on the field at the same time. I don't underestimate Hugh Freeze to get creative and dive into his bag because they're going to have to be tricky. This is a rivalry game. It means a lot to Auburn. It means a lot to Georgia. And if those fans want to pull off an upset, be a celebrating and rolling some toilet paper on trees at the end, they're going to have to come out with some very unorthodox offensive approaches for Auburn to score points against Georgia. So I expect a lot of trick plays, a lot of weird formations, a lot of back uh, window dressing, a lot of shifts late offensively to create confusion for a Georgia defense. This is going to have to be Hugh Freeze's probably best coaching effort. Hey, he took Ole Miss and beat Alabama 2 years in a row. This might be a chance for him, maybe not this year, but he can start setting the standard of that Auburn can actually beat Georgia going forward. But he's going to have to be able to come up with some serious offensive creativity to get it done. You can't be vanilla. You can't be stale if you want to beat anyone in the league or anyone in any conference, much less a two-time defending national champion. You've got to find ways to open up and really push the limits of an offense so that it can be explosive and be creative. And I expect Georgia's defense should be on alert at all times for any kind of fakes, any kind of weird formations, any kind of weird looks, maybe even wildcat formations where Jaquez Hunter, the running back, the lead back, is just taking direct snaps and going. You've got to be prepared for anything. I mean, that's also that plays to Auburn's advantage. They have nothing to lose. They can pull everything out. Everyone already thinks they're terrible anyway. So whatever they do is an added bonus to create confusion, create it, and muck it up and make it a four-quarter game. If they can keep the crowd in the football game the entire time, it makes it worse in the fourth quarter. If they get run out by halftime, that place is empty and it's done and becomes just a hole. They can do whatever they want and muck it up and make it ugly and make it really, really tough for a four-quarter football game, which Georgia has. They had to play one versus South Carolina. If you start making them play more four-quarter football games, I think the shine of this football team starts wearing off and people start realizing this isn't a two-time defending champion. This is just a bunch of players who are on that squad, but this is a completely different football team. And how do you take away that mystique as well? I don't think Auburn has the talent to beat Georgia, but crazy things do happen. Georgia's 0-4 against the spread so far this season. If this was 14 or less, I'd really, really like the Dogs to cover. 14.5 puts you on edge, but I think the Dogs win by 17 or 20. They find a way to cover just barely, maybe even a backdoor cover late in the fourth quarter. Dogs win 47 points. That requires Auburn to score. I will take the over in this football game. I think Kirby and the Dogs, they have to showcase that they are still here. And if they have a chance, they're going to pour it on to keep the attention on them. I think the first half will be slow because Georgia's started off slow every single game so far this season. But they've outscored opponents 56-0 in the third quarter. And that's where the game will turn into the second half. And they will finish it off and dominate toward the end. But Auburn will make them fight in the first half. And it will probably be a sign of things to come for Auburn's sake that they do have some talent there. And Hugh Freeze knows what he's doing at least a little bit. But Georgia wins at the end.
Fresh. Listen, if I'm Auburn, I'm quoting Lou Brown right now from Major League. Listen, every newspaper in America is picking Auburn to lose this game and probably finish pretty badly. It would be better if it just make everyone's lives easier if they went out back and shot themselves. But Auburn's probably there for wasting our time and wasting for other people's time. A wonderful quote by Lou Brown from Major League there. And, I kind of feel like Hugh Freeze is Lou Brown, and he's working out at Tire Kingdom, and they go, hey, how would you like to be the head coach of the Auburn Tigers? And he's like, I don't know. I got someone on the other line about some white walls. I'll get back to you on it. Auburn's crap. Okay, let's not like shine up a turd here and make it there. And again, this isn't to say anything bad about like the Auburn fans or anything like this, but no good football team changes their quarterback 3 times in the game. No one. You beat up on Samford. You beat up on UMass or whoever else you played. A joke of a program, and you want to like puff out your chest. Bring Cadillac Williams back. Bring Coach Cadillac back because he'd do a better job than Hugh Freeze on this one. I really think Auburn is in a rock and a hard place in this piece. And I don't know how like their fans are going to feel about this. And again, I hate to say that to a fan base that's so passionate like Auburn, and to say like your team is not good, your team is crap. Like this game should mean a whole lot more. And I know, Fresh, you're gonna again as an outsider who's not involved in the rivalry, and everyone always like to put out like Jordan, the crazy things that happen at Jordan Air, and maybe I'm dead wrong. And listen, if I'm dead wrong, come back into the comments section, and I'll take my lumps, man. Go ahead, eat me alive in the comment section if Auburn wins this football game. Go ahead, put me on blast. Keep your receipts. Go ahead and
Put
say
me on
all
blast
they
too.
want. Go right ahead, because Auburn's not good. Auburn's not good. They're awful on third down. They're 3 for 15. They had 10 penalties last week. A&M had 7 sacks. Where is the talent in this football team? Someone please point to me and say like this. The wheels are about ready to fall off with Auburn. They go they got Georgia, they got LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State coming down the line here on their schedule there. And then, at the end of the season, they still got to deal with Alabama. I think Alabama's kind of starting to pick themselves off the mat. Auburn's about ready to go into at least a minimum 4-game losing streak. Now, I'm going to say something here else as well. Georgia, this has got to be your game. This has got to be your game. This past week, I started, when are we going to stop talking about Georgia from 21-22? 2 years ago, around this time, I want to say it was right after week 5. I watched Georgia just completely manhandle someone. I went on this show and I said Georgia's going to be your national champions this year. They're going to end their drought. They'll win the national title. They're the best team I saw in college football. Saw it with my own 2 eyes. You gave them the respect, and sure enough, they pulled it off. Last year, again, seeing it, Georgia, you're going to be in the national title game. You're going to be one of the best. You are one of the best teams. I can't say that right now. I can't. And it's not meant as disrespect, but this Georgia team, again, it's kind of the same thing we're saying about Alabama. Something feels off. Something feels different. Carson Beck's been good. He's been good. Not great. Not terrible. He's been good. Georgia running backs. Georgia's supposed to be a running back factory. My favorite running back in the entire National Football League's from Georgia. I love Nick Chubb. He's my favorite player in the NFL. Georgia's running back, there's no Nick Chubb. There's no Todd Gurley. There's no Sony Michel on this team. Georgia's known for their running backs. Brock Bowers has been really good. Georgia has 17 first quarter points. 17 first quarter points on the season. They're okay, and that's the thing that scares me. Their schedule is UT Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, UAB. And you've scored 17 points in the first quarter. You've scored 79 points in the first half against those 4 teams. You should have a couple of C notes on them. Guys, like, this is where it really troubles me, because I think Georgia has an issue here. And I think an early season schedule, an easy early season schedule, is really hiding it from them. They're slow starters. And I'm going to tell you the truth. There's no one on your schedule that really can expose this right now. Florida? Nope. Kentucky? Maybe. We'll see about Kentucky this weekend. I doubt it. Missouri? Nope. Ole Miss? Nope. Tennessee, if they get their act together, but Tennessee's defense has got questions. I think that that's going to be a huge letdown long term, because if you continue to start off slow and you make this a trend, and you don't learn to really put the boots and put someone away real quick, like this team is capable of doing, again, when you win back-to-back national titles, expectations change exponentially for you. If we were talking about Tennessee, and Tennessee was 4-0, or if we're talking about UCLA, and UCLA's 4-0, and they're at this is no problem. You're 4-0, great, good job. You're looking good. You're not the defending national champions. If you want to be taken seriously in 23, you got to show you really need the style points here, because I'm just going to say what everyone else is noticing. The SEC is down this year. It is noticeably down this year. And everyone who's sitting there saying like, oh, the power, you don't have that to rely on anymore. And I'm worried that until Georgia really starts, you might need a Miami Dolphins like 70-20 game to get the voters back on your side. Georgia wins. Georgia covers. I'm going with them. They're going to go. I say they win this game by 24, and that might be low.
I
I'm
mean,
again.
this needs to be a get right game. It has to, because if there's still questions coming out of this football game, then it starts spiraling from there.
Yeah, I need to see something. I need to see a game, establish a game plan in the first half, and say this is who we are.
Well,
I
I
need
think
a dominating performance.
like folks, obviously Seth's an Ohio State fan, but that Western Kentucky game, there were questions from McCord, and he came out and they dropped 70 on him. Like, you
Right.
need that one game where people look at the box score and they're like, oh my God, what just happened?
Right. And with Auburn here too, is that Auburn again, we've both deep dived into Auburn football here. Auburn's not good. Auburn's pretty bad. You're giving them a lot more respect than I will. And again, you do that in a rivalry game. It's your team fresh. It's your rivalry game there. You'll give your opponent much more respect than I will. I'm going to call a spade a spade. Like, I don't, again, like I said, I'll compare them to the Major League Indians right now, or Guardians now, I guess. I got to call them that. But
The scary thing is they went to the pennant.
yeah, but it took a long time to get to there. And they don't got no Jake Taylor or Ricky Vaughn on this team
They
here.
do not have Jake Taylor, Ricky Vaughn, or Willie Mays
Right.
Hayes.
So there you go. I'm going to move on to this game because let's go to the game of the week. I'm so excited about this, Fresh, because I've been waiting to talk about this game all day long. I'm ecstatic that we're going to talk about this. The Kansas Jayhawks. They're 4-0. I'm dropping my pen right now. I'm throwing it on the table because I'm so excited about this. Rock Chalk Jayhawks, man. Listen, great job before we even get into the game versus Texas. Great job out of you, Jayhawks. You know what? Everyone under the sun questioned, you went 6-7 last year, 6-6, and I don't remember if they won their bowl game or not. But like, oh, it's a fluke year. Oh, nice job out of you guys. And what do you do for an encore? You start off the season 4-0. And it's not like you've beat some slappies. Yes, you have two slappies on your schedule in Missouri State and Nevada. And you did just barely beat Nevada. I won't say that. But you had Illinois at home. You took care of business against Illinois. You face a very good, I watched almost a good chunk of that Kansas BYU game again. That's a good BYU team. Much better than I really gave them credit for, especially as we were diving in. Very impressed with them. And Kansas took care of business in this game. I love what the Jayhawks are doing. They're balanced. They have a solid run game. With that being said, they're going up against the Texas Longhorns. They're my number one team right now in our top polls at the end of the week. Texas is a 17-point home favorite. Over-under is set at 62 points here. I think Kansas is going to take their first loss, but it's fun to play the what if game here, Fresh. What does it do to college football if Kansas has a miracle? Because it's going to be a miracle game. I give it like a 1% chance of happening, but sometimes those long shots come in.
Well, there are 3 teams right now undefeated in the Big 12: Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. 2 of those teams play next week in some big event, the Texas State Fair. And then we have the Kansas-Texas game. If Kansas wins this football game, that's Texas going in 0-1 in the league in the Red River Rivalry. If they're 0-2, does that even take them out of the consideration? In my opinion, if they're 0-2, that's no playoff period. But they might even win the Big 12. So this is actually a big time deal. Where is Texas looking ahead to Oklahoma and not remembering to play and respect Kansas? Kansas starts with the 2 studs, Jalen Daniels at quarterback, Devin Neal at running back. But for this game, they're going to need a third superstar to step up and show up in this football game. They need someone else to outside the two of them to help supplement that offense and help generate a much wider attack because they're not playing, like you said, two slappies where two dudes can go out there and run around like Michael Vick and tear it up. They need guys who are going to be able to help out their quarterback, help take the pressure off the running back, and attack a very good defense. Is it going to be other running back Daniel Hinshaw Jr., 235 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns? Wide receiver Lawrence Arnold, 246. Wide receiver Luke Grimm, 175 and 3 touchdowns, who is a big favorite target of Daniels. Or is it Quentin Skinner, the other receiver, has 173 yards receiving? Which one of those 4 players is going to step up and be that extra weapon for the Jayhawks? They're going to need all of them probably to really pull off an upset, especially when you go into Austin. They're not coming to Lawrence where, it's a sleepy little trip for Texas, and they've lost in Lawrence in the past. You're going to Austin, where that place is going to be lit on fire, ready to go. Everyone's going to be excited. You're going to have to show up, and everyone's going to be, all hands on deck for the Jayhawks and that Lance Leipold offense. So I'm looking at those guys. Which one of those guys settles in and helps facilitate and generate this offense and move it forward? We know what Texas is. This is the first. They have their quarterback, Ewers, Worthy, Mitchell. The list goes on, blah, blah, blah. And then you got Bevo sitting there in the pen in the back of the end zone. This is the first time Texas has been 4-0 since 2012. 2012. The expectations right now for Texas are sky high. You've already beat Alabama. You're undefeated. A loss could gut this entire program. How does this team handle and not look ahead to Oklahoma? Does this team mature enough to take care of business, take care of it from start to finish, and then march on to Dallas, get ready for Oklahoma, and take on the Sooners, who they beat 49-0 last year, and really announce Sark as got that program in the right spot? That's another key point. Do they look ahead? Are they prepared? Do they overlook Kansas? The reason why I say do they overlook Kansas because they've scored 50-plus on them the last 3 times they've played. But they're 2-1 during that period. They did lose one in overtime. They score a lot. Kansas defense, you've got to be better to give your team a chance because 50-plus points in 3 straight games, that's pretty rough. I mean, you've got to give your offense a chance to score some points. You've got to be able to get a stop. And this Texas offense is, I think, better than it was the past 3 years. So where does Lance Leipold's defense make an appearance? Are they ready to go and be able to at least get a stop or two and limit the damage to keep their offense in the football game? Because we all talk about on the road, running game and defense. That's what travels. Can you bring those 2 elements in this football game and pull off an upset? If your defense doesn't show up, it's very tough to pull off an upset in the first place, no matter where you're playing. But if you can get both those elements ready to go and locked in, and at least get some improvement, if you could hold Texas to 40, maybe if your offense is clicking or you get a defensive score, because you had 2 versus BYU, you might be in a good spot. But how do you be able to generate a full team effort? Can you get some stops? Can you play within yourself? Can you manage the clock? Can you take the air out of it offensively? Not score too fast. Maybe keep that offense on the sideline for Texas. What can you do to take the crowd out of it? That's also you run the ball, get stops, score touchdowns, you keep the crowd out of the football game. You can't give up 50 to this team because if you give up 50, it's going to tell everyone that you're still Kansas. If you can make it even more of a competitive game and maybe get your defense to improve, maybe it's a 42-37 or 42-30 game, it shows you've improved, and it shows that it's a different product there in Lawrence, and that you are definitely a team that's going to be sustainable going forward, not just this year, but next year and the year after. This is what I want to see from that Jayhawk defense. Balance out with your offensive superstars, show up on Saturday, and make it a full, complete effort across the board. Speaking of defense, I'm actually very impressed with Texas's defense this year. It's not just the offense that's been getting it done. And it hasn't just been this year. It's actually been going back to the beginning of 2022 season. Texas has kept their last 9 opponents under 30 points. The most they've allowed in the last 9 games is 27. And the last time they allowed the 27 was October 22nd at Oklahoma State when they lost. Ironically, that's also the last time Oklahoma State scored at least 27 points in a football game. So a lot of weird things happened that day. If you even go back to the 2022 opener, Texas has only allowed an opponent to score more than 27 points twice. That was at Oklahoma State and then at Texas Tech that same year earlier in the overtime loss. 17 games, the last 17 games, only 2 times they've given up more than 27. So it means this Texas defense is getting off the field, they're limiting damage, and they're playing very efficient, and they're tackling and they're forcing turnovers. This isn't some of those Texas defense we saw earlier in the 2000s where they were just getting run. They was just a bloodbath, and they were just guys scoring left and right. These guys are efficient. They tackle. They get after the quarterback. They own the line of scrimmage. They are becoming a very national championship caliber defense because they are so big up front, and they tackle, and they get after the quarterback, and they limit possessions. It's not just a fluke 1 or 2 games. They've been doing it consistently. And if they can do that versus this offense and then do it next week versus Oklahoma, watch out. The Longhorns are not just a Big 12 championship contender, they're a playoff contender because they've shown they can beat legit heavy laden offenses that can score points. If you have both, you're in great. Look at USC last year. We've seen it before. Teams have great offenses but no defense. What happens? They get wiped out in the playoff, or they don't even make the playoff. You have to have both sides, and Texas right now is showing on the defensive side of the ball they have it. And I think they show up to this football game ready to go and ready to take care of business. And one little antidote before I wrap up. Under Sark, Texas versus ranked opponents is 3-7. Only wins versus Louisiana, Kansas State, and Alabama this year. They have not showed up to play consistently versus ranked teams. Does that hurt them this week?
Fresh, I don't know if it's going to hurt them this week. The only thing that I could see them hurting this week is if they are looking ahead already to Red River and they kind of let their guard down, similar to kind of what they did with Wyoming coming off the big Alabama win. You saw that they were a slow start in that game. You better take Kansas seriously because this is all about respecting your opponent. And that's the one really, like, the great thing I can say at this is Kansas is playing with house money. Kansas has been on a heater on the craps table, and Kansas wants to go try their luck at a poker game here, and they're going in with the money of Vegas right there and sitting down. They're going up against one of the best poker players in the conference here in Texas, and guess what? It's going to be very difficult to beat them. The matchup I want to see right now, though, is Kansas has got a very good offensive line. It's what allows them to run the football, allows them to stay ahead of the sticks. They only faced 8 third downs against BYU. They kept the ball in front, got first downs, put up the points when they need to put up the points. They're balanced. They have a really good offensive line. Texas, really good defensive line, can cause problems here. Is Kansas able to run the football against that Texas defensive line? If they're not, it could be a long afternoon for the Jayhawks. But again, we're playing with house money here. Most people aren't picking you to win. I need Kansas to stay respectable in this football game. Lose by 14, respectable loss there. Texas, most people feel Texas has a lot more talent than you do. Anything under the 20, I feel like anything under 21 points is a respectable loss for them. And really, especially when you're at home at Austin for Texas, that 17 number, I'm going to go right at that 17 number. I got Texas by 17 because Jonathan Brooks is rolling back-to-back 100-yard games there. The receiving threats have been balanced. The question is which offensive receiving threat blows up in this game, whether it's Sanders, whether it's Worthy, whether it's A.D. Mitchell. Which one is it that's going to go off in this game? I think that's what becomes very difficult for Kansas is the back secondary. Are you able to completely lock down every single receiving threat? I think Sanders is the most difficult out of all of them, especially at the tight end position, running that little seam route up the middle. I think he does this. If Kansas does Texas take Kansas lightly, though? That's the end question I have. If they don't, if they're looking ahead to Red River, Kansas could pull off the miracle of all miracles right now. I don't think Quinn Ewers is going to do it. He's been efficient. He's been effective. No interceptions on the year. Throwing the ball all over the place. Sometimes not playing in the fourth quarter. I think Texas rolls. I think Kansas looks good in this game. Give me Texas right at that 17 number. I'm right at 17 with them. I actually feel like 17 is like the perfect number. I almost feel like it's going to be a push play here. I'm going to go the under with the points, though. 62 seems a little bit on the high side for me. Actually, life's too short to bet the under. Give me the over for Texas, Kansas. They'll light up the scoreboard like a honky tonk down in Austin.
Well, it's funny you say the 17. I honestly I think Texas does cover. I think they win by 20. But I actually have them on. I'm taking the under here. 37-17 final. Win by 20, but we do not hit the 62. I think that they're going to run the ball out late, and the running game from Kansas will help limit possessions and keep them somewhat close.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Fresh, before we sign off, real quick, let's do one quick hitter here. We got a ranked matchup on Friday night. We don't really love talking about Friday night football games because, like Ing said, quick hit between Utah and Oregon State. Give me some quick things. What are you looking for in the Utah-Oregon State game?
I want to see how Oregon State responds after a loss to Washington State the week before. They were down a lot. They fought, made a nice little comeback on the road. How do they come back home to Corvallis and get refocused to go after it? Utah offensively has not looked very good. I think they need Cam Rising. That they've been able to do just enough. Their running game isn't what it used in the past, but the defense is absolutely lights out. Could this be the way they finally get Utah? Can Utah finally just not have enough magic? Maybe get caught into like a 17-10 game because night games, Thursday, Friday night games in Corvallis, ranked teams come in there. Sometimes they don't have very much success. The Beavers get them. So kind of worried, like, where's Oregon State? How do they respond? Get they focus back, and can they pull off a nice little win on Friday night and bounce back from Washington State? In Utah, is Cam Rising going to play? That's what I got.
Yeah. I'm the same thing. That spread is sitting there at 3.5 points. Oregon State favor right now. Over under is in the mid 40s right now. I think that's interesting because I think both these defenses there. Crazy things happen in Corvallis. I really think this Oregon State team is going to bounce back. Utah is a different team when they leave. When they leave the state of Utah, when they're on the road, they're not as good. I think Oregon State's going to win this game. I wish this was on Saturday night and we could do some Pac-12 after dark. But unfortunately, it's on Friday night. It's on FS1, so make sure you get that. But great, if you're not going to a high school football game, you want a game to watch on Friday night, flip that one on, check that out. One just to do a quick hitter from that one. So, guys, thank you guys all for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new video. We drop full episode videos, or we're going to drop those short, sweet, individual game episodes when we can there. So make sure you interact with us on social media. Find us on the X, formerly known as Twitter, or make sure you're going to spinnablesports.com. We got all sorts of stuff. Fresh is dropping NFL stuff. Our friend, our producer, who can't do anything without him, special thanks to him, Digital Drew. Check out his new podcast show on the Spinnable Sports YouTube channel if you want to check out a great take for NFL football and all of your betting needs for that. Check out his NFL sports thing. I always take a look. I think it's interesting to see his perspective on things. He's got a lot of great takes about what's going on in the NFL. Check that out as well. And make sure you go on spinnablesports.com. Like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Leave us that 5-star review because you guys know Fresh and I, we're those 5-star prospects. Fresh, week number 5, we're staying alive. Barely as if both of us have coughed through this whole thing here and gotten a little verklempt and a little choked up. I've quoted Major League. I didn't get funky like a monkey baby. But other than that, we got some good things going on.
We got to play like champions, survive and get through it. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. Week 5 is going to be another fun one. A lot of fire across the country and a lot of big wins, a lot of crazy things happening. And hopefully both our teams keep winning. But with that, bye, y'all.